Hi, it's Stephanie Pruitt. It is the second day of 30 by 30 by 30, and I'm coming to you in a stairwell at the Frisk Center for the Visual Arts, where I just went through the 30 Americans exhibit again, and I selected a work and wrote a draft of a poem inspired by that work. And this is actually interesting. I said inspired by that work, but as I was writing, I was thinking more, is it about being inspired by the work? Am I writing in relationship to it, in response to the work? A lot of what I'm doing is about the tradition of ekphrasis or ekphrasis. Some people say that's EKPHRASIS. And it's the tradition of writing, creating a literary work that correlates directly to a work of visual art. That's obviously what I'm doing, but my reasons are, sometimes a little different each time. Is it that I'm specifically inspired and interested in the ideas, or I'm writing in opposition to a work, in relation to it? I'm just thinking about that throughout this whole process, and it might change over time. But for today, change is really a good keyword to use. So I wrote a draft responding to Leonardo Drew's work called Untitled Number 25. This is a large mixed media, I guess you would say sculpture in a way. It's a series of cotton bales, raw cotton, and they're stacked in this massive work that creates a visual force. It's a wall, it's a barrier, it was just amazing looking at it, but it's all raw cotton and wax. So I have actually two drafts today. I started in one direction and then abruptly changed what I was thinking. The first one felt a little silly, interesting, but kind of silly to me. I knew there was much more to mine. The second one came about as I was sitting actually on the floor in the gallery. One of the docents came by and talked about how when she's speaking about that piece, when she's giving a tour, she has to actually speak louder and really propel her voice because the wall of cotton absorbs the sound. And that was just amazing to me, thinking about what cotton can absorb. Of course, literally, physically, but also historically and culturally. What has it absorbed and taken on? So that's what I'm writing about. Another quick note, I know I mentioned ekphrasis. So sometimes you encounter, or a reader will encounter, a poem, a short story, or a novel that is in response to a visual work, and you don't actually see the painting or the sculpture that it's dealing with. That's obviously the case with 30 by 30 by 30. For legal reasons, I'm not able to show pictures or film inside the gallery. So I'm very curious about how people are hearing and reading these poems, not seeing the visual prompt. I think it creates a whole nother piece of work itself, so that's interesting to me. All right, I'm yakking. Let's read the poem. But my point is, I'd love to hear responses from you. All right, here's the beginning of the first one that I changed my mind on. BOGO. Mama's been couponing again, has all the walls stocked, piled, 1 3/5 Abe Lincolns across, and 2 John Browns high. That might be a lie. Add old Abe's hat to the measure. One wall is all cotton. Balls, squares, round pads, tips, all but the raw bowl. Cotton balls. She must have cleared every drugstore shelf in a 60-mile radius. Okay, so it kind of goes on for a minute, but then I changed. I knew that there was so much more to talk about. Here we go, the first draft and notes. And then I changed in a very different direction. This is 13 ways of looking at a cotton bale. 1, horizon absorbed, sound absorbed, blood absorbed, 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 absorbed. 2, a row, an aisle, a parted field that divides, breaks, takes all you can fit in a burlap sack and splits. 3, long and short staple, black and green seeded, from Carolina to Mississippi to China, the fabric of our lives. 4. It's BOGO on cotton balls at the drugstore. A 50-cent coupon too. How many aisles, shelves, rows, shelves, picked clean. 5. The second anniversary wedding gift, years later, still in its box. A cotton layette and silver rattle. 6. You wait one cotton picking minute. And just how long would that be? 7. A shopping cheer. Woohoo, woohoo, hoo. Machine washable. 8. Boll weevil and kudzu, no. Something in the milky cotton ain't clean and needs to go. 9. Raw beauty turns rancid in history's hands. 10. Legend says my sharecropping granddaddy could pick his weight in cotton twice a day, worked 4 rows at a time, leaning, stretching, reaching. Those arms were too worn to hug. 11. Southern hipster wedding. Mason jars? Check. Chalkboards? Check. Twine and burlap? Check. Cotton branch centerpieces? Cotton branch centerpieces. Who forgot to pick up the cotton? 12. Cotton. Get your fresh picked cotton. White, right, white, right, white, right. 13. The planter at once holds bud and blossom, ripe bowl and empty hull in hand. So, 13 ways of looking at a cotton bale. Thinking of Wallace Stevens' 13 ways of looking at a blackbird, and here you can see a bit of the draft. I don't know, this writing in relation to other works is it's an exciting, challenging, interesting, different kind of thing. But it's the idea of art and creativity being this generative force. Making one thing leads to someone else making something else, and it leads to someone else making something else, and it just kind of branches out in these responses. And I enjoy that, but you see with this draft, or these 2 drafts in a way, I very clearly and starkly changed my direction in the middle. So I'm careful to say that I write drafts, and that's what I write. When we talk about writing, sometimes people say, oh, I have writer's block, I can't write right now. I've never really believed in writer's block. Maybe I'm not writing something that I like, maybe I'm not writing something that's good and worthy of an audience, but I can write something. If I have a pencil and paper, I can write something. So I consider anything I write to be a draft. Now later, when I take it to my poet's table and work on it, I'm making a poem. So I write drafts, I make poems. Maybe it's, just shucking and jiving within nuance, but that difference really helps me and frees me to change my mind, change my direction as needed. So, in this case, the first idea and image was interesting to me, but I knew there was more there. So I was willing to shift it, change it. The first part was just a draft. And even now, I would still say it's a draft. I know that I'll work on it a little bit. But I think it's interesting to think about when we allow ourselves to change our minds. There's a concept called intelligent fast failure, or IFF, intelligent fast failure. I think it's something that a lot of artists, over time, if you figure out how to sustain your career, is something that a lot of artists are really good at doing. We try, we test, and we switch gears as needed. That's where innovation and kind of new things come from. You have to be willing to fail, intelligent fast failure. Try it, see if it works, shift directions if not, and keep going. That's kind of what I'm doing in a very quick time frame with 30 by 30 by 30. All right, thanks for coming. You see I've got my 28 for today. Watch out for tomorrow's video. You'll see the 29. I'll also be talking in the next few days about some ways that you can get involved and kind of actively have your own 30 by 30 by 30 thing going. I'm looking forward to it. I'll talk with you soon.